parent, navigating a new diagnosis, or trying to avoid unnecessary hospital or nursing home stays, this episode is for you.
We're joined by Hannah Berenberg from Bayada Home Health Care, one of the most recognized home care providers in the country. Hannah is here to break down the different types of home care, explain the difference between private pay and skilled nursing, and help families understand how to access services when they need support the most.
We're also diving into insurance coverage, physician referrals, and what homebound really means, and how patients can continue seeing their own doctors while receiving care at home.
This is for mature audiences only, presented by Archer Law Office. Let's get started.
Today we're joined by Hannah Berenberg from Bayada Home Health Care, an organization many people have heard of but may not fully understand.
Hannah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you both for having me. Happy to be here.
All right, let's start from the beginning, Hannah. What type of at-home services does Bayada provide?
So we're very lucky to be able to provide a wide continuum of care all over the state of New Jersey. If we're specifically talking about this local area, we're able to provide adult nursing, pediatric nursing. We have hospice services, skilled visit services, which I know we'll talk about with some of the questions today. My office specifically is the personal care side with certified home health aides. And very recently in our Tinton Falls area, we've opened an ABA and autism therapy office as well.
Wow.
For those types of services at home and also in our headquarters in Pennsauken.
There are so many different programs that Bayada provides. So what exactly is the service area for New Jersey?
So we can cover the entire state of New Jersey. Bayada is actually in 22 states and in 6 countries.
Wow.
So I know we're here in New Jersey today, so specifically talking about it, but we can cover from the top to the bottom of New Jersey. My office specifically is in East Brunswick, so we cover Middlesex and part of Somerset. But for anybody who calls, there's an office to support them, which is really nice.
That's great because some of our clients are in New York and Pennsylvania as well as New Jersey. So it's good to know that they could reach a Bayada in a different state.
Yes, we definitely cover. We have a large presence in Pennsylvania. That's actually where we were founded in Philadelphia. So
Okay.
Wow.
50 years ago in 1975, we were founded in Philadelphia. That's where our first service office was. So we have a large presence in Pennsylvania and New York too.
Nice.
Is there any part of the state in New Jersey in particular where you guys have more cases than others?
I feel like it really depends on the needs and the types of services. But for personal care, we have a very large presence in Arizona as well, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
We just opened an office in Las Vegas a couple of years ago. So I think the East Coast is where we have the most types of services. But out west too is a great presence. So
That's exciting.
Now, when you say personal care, how would you define that in your own words?
So personal care for us is assistance at home with certified home health aides. So they can help with bathing, dressing, incontinence care, toileting, safety and supervision. So they're able to help. They're all licensed caregivers as well. So in the state of New Jersey, they have to hold a certified home health aide license that comes from the Board of Nursing.
Okay, so and are you also able to provide hourly care, live-in care?
All of that would go into our personal care. So we have hourly services, we have live-in all throughout the state of New Jersey as well. All of our service offices, so here in East Brunswick, in my office, we have live-in and hourly support.
Nice.
People often hear a bunch of different terms about the services that you provide. People hear private pay, skilled home care. Can you talk about the difference between the two?
Yeah. So I think the biggest difference between the two is the payer source. So private pay is out of pocket, but that's not the only way that home health aid services can be covered. So for personal care services, long-term care insurance can also cover that type of support. Skilled nursing is strictly through insurance. So whether it's a commercial insurance or Medicare, I think the other difference between it too is flexibility in the service. So private pay, you are paying for that yourself. So the schedule you want is basically the schedule you'll get, except for maybe some minimums that our offices have. But skilled nursing, there's specific amount of visits that are given through your insurance, and every insurance is different.
Really?
Mhm.
I did not know that's how it worked.
Mhm.
Very interesting.
And when it comes to nursing specifically, when someone's receiving at-home nursing services, what is considered skilled?
So there's pieces to that. So I think the skilled nurse element to it, it could be for wound care. It could be specifically for a nurse to come out to the home. It could be for catheter care, ostomy care. It could also be for educational purposes. So if a client themselves is unable to perform the care, they will do trainings to a family member or a friend or a neighbor, whoever's supporting them through that as well.
Nice. I think a lot of our clients, they don't understand the terms. And even I think the general populace, when you hear skilled versus private pay, people get confused. What does skilled mean?
Yes, and I think something very important to mention is, and it's a call that we get almost every single day in our office, is a lot of clients that are calling, they think that their insurance is going to pay for a home health aide. Unfortunately, that is not the case.
Right.
And it's hard sometimes because they've called their insurance company and they're like, I just spoke with Aetna and they just told me this and I'm a stranger to them. So
Sure.
for them calling me, I'm like, I know I'm a stranger to you, but I promise you this is the correct information. And what the insurance companies are saying is home health, not just home health aid services. So through insurance, they could receive physical therapy, occupational therapy, a visiting nurse, sometimes a couple of hours of a home health aid, maybe once or twice a week, but only for bathing purposes. So they'll come in, they'll do a shower, they'll do a sponge bath, they'll do a bed bath, whatever the client needs, but then they're out the door because they got to get to their next client. And that's not guaranteed because insurance doesn't deem home health aides as medically necessary.
And we're including Medicare in that when you say
Exactly.
insurance.
Exactly. So Medicare, we in New Jersey, we actually have an office that helps with commercial insurance visits too, which is pretty unique. They can also do private pay visits from a nurse or a therapist. That office is actually in Morristown, we were just talking about. So they are able to provide that support. That's where we get a lot of confusion in the calls. And unfortunately, they think insurance is going to pay.
Sure.
They will not. They'll pay for those visit services, but they're not going to pay for strictly a home health aid.
All right, let's take a step back for a
Yeah.
second. So let's talk about a family calls in to the office. What's the process like, the intake process?
Yes, so we'll take a call. We'll kind of gather some information. I always like to ask, what's been going on recently that you're looking for additional services in the home? And they'll kind of start with, hey, this might happen with my mom or my dad. And I kind of listen and I take notes at the same time of what their needs are. Sometimes it branches off to that insurance conversation where then I'm like, all right, let's go through this together and take it one step at a time. We also have an insurance confirmation office. So if somebody calls us and they're like, you know what, I'm really adamant, I really think my insurance covers this, they told me this, I will collect their policy information and I'll have our other office run it for them and call them to go through the details. And sometimes that helps solidify for them that unfortunately the home health aid element is not covered. From there, we'll kind of see what they're looking for, if it's for my office or another office of Bayada, and then we get them to the right place.
Great.
You started in 2019, right before COVID hit. How have you seen things change before COVID hit versus now that we're kind of post-COVID?
Yeah, I think a lot of people in that time frame, I always used to hear when I started, I know there's a shortage of caregivers. And I always used to say, I'm like, there's not a shortage, there's life circumstances that have happened where maybe they're not able to be out there to provide this service, but we're constantly hiring, we're constantly able to run. We have a home health aid training class that comes through our office where individuals are coming to learn how to become a caregiver and help them become certified. So I think that has been something that came up during that time, and the type of care we provide too. So when we have a COVID case, when we have maybe an infection that arises, we're really taking the necessary precautions that come from not only the CDC, but from our Bayada quality and clinical team, which really came together during that time.
Do patients need a prescription or how do you get a referral? Does it have to be physician driven? Can anybody call?
Yes, so they definitely can call anytime for the private pay element. So we don't need, for personal care support in the home with the aide, we don't need a script. We don't need any details or information. If you wanted to have the doctor call and give us a medical history, we definitely can take that. Our nurse will definitely accept that detail. Skilled nursing definitely need a script. I would say a script from a doctor, or if they're discharging from a rehab or a hospital, a script from them, and then sometimes even notes from their most recent doctor's appointment.
Okay, great.
Once services begin, how long will insurance-covered home care usually last?
Typically 6 to 8 weeks from what I understand from my sister office that provides that service. But if somebody needed to extend it, it would be a conversation with their insurance company to approve any additional visits for them.
So at that point, would the insurance have to send somebody out to kind of evaluate the person and go over with you guys in order to extend them like you would with any other insurance?
That I don't know. I don't think they would send somebody out, but I know they would coordinate with our Bayada office. I'm sure that our providers would have to provide notes of where the client is at that time and then try to see if they're able to provide more or not.
Great. I know we touched on it earlier, but let's talk about the patients you see most. Which diagnoses or what is a typical patient that's either on private pay or is a skilled patient?
Yes, so I would say we have a lot of clients that are living with dementia that we support. Parkinson's, COPD, congestive heart failure. The skilled side, it could be more of, post-surgery, maybe a hip replacement, knee replacement. But we also support with those clients too at home, which is great to combine those services too. So my office can have an aide in the home, and we also have our Bayada therapists that are coming out to support them as well.
Great. So if somebody was in a rehab because they had a hip replacement, they can continue their physical therapy at home.
Exactly. Yep.
Great.
That's definitely a big part of it, especially, that transition, that physical therapy part. I love that you guys have that because our seniors or anybody really on home health services needs to continue that movement of every day, getting those moving your legs, moving your limbs, getting up out of your chair. So I'm love that you guys do that. While we're talking about terms, we hear the term homebound a lot. What does homebound mean? And is that required to qualify for skilled home care services?
Sure. So homebound, I would say maybe the best way to put it is if you need somebody to help take you out of the home to go to an appointment or go somewhere, then you're considered homebound. So if you're not able to get out by yourself somewhere without the support of somebody else, you would be considered homebound. That is a requirement for the skilled element. We can still have with a home health aide, private pay, or through long-term care insurance, you can still be driving and going out and doing your appointments and have our aide maybe in the cart with you for just if you need help bringing in groceries or the mail or something, whatever it might be. But definitely for the skilled element, they have to be considered homebound.
With the long-term care insurance that you just touched on, do you guys help with the policies that folks have? Because a lot of folks have a long-term care insurance policy.
Yeah, and they don't know what to do.
They have no idea how to activate it, how to use it. Does your company kind of walk them through how to get that kind of active?
Exactly. Yes, we definitely do. So that insurance office I mentioned before that could run like a commercial insurance, they're primarily for our long-term care insurance policies. So when I take an intake, if somebody mentions to me in that original call, I always ask, have you opened a claim yet? That's the first step that somebody wants to have in that process. Have you opened a claim? Have you contacted them? If the client is unable to sign forms for themselves, who is power of attorney? Because the long-term care is going to want to know and have that documentation in order to sign the paperwork to set up the long-term care. So I'll ask those questions. I might dive a little bit into elimination period. So that's a period of time they have to pay out of pocket before their insurance kicks in. So I'll go through that with them so that they kind of know what they might be looking for or what might happen in the process. And we're able to either go two ways. We can bill them privately and have them be reimbursed directly from their long-term care, or we can do what we call an assignment of benefits, where they're able to sign a form. There's a HIPAA form and an assignment of benefits form. They have to sign, provide to us. We provide that to our insurance office, and they'll set up the assignment of benefits, or what we call AOB, to be on file so we can bill their insurance directly for them.
So I love that. So Mary and I talk about that a lot because a lot of folks have these long-term care policies but are still required to pay the amount up front. Let's say you're in a place that's costing you a skilled nursing facility that's $14,000 a month. A lot of people don't have that just sitting on hand to be able to pay somebody to get reimbursed.
Right. That's why they got the long-term care.
Right. That's why you got it in the first place, right? I mean, that's the whole reason that you have the insurance, right? It's for it to be able to cover you. And, folks run into that issue. We've seen that before. So the fact that you guys have a system where it goes,
it could be either or.
Right. And
it's wonderful.
I'm always asking Mary, how come they don't just build the long-term care insurance directly?
Yeah.
It kind of doesn't make sense.
We definitely can do that. I mean, there's only like certain circumstances where maybe we would consider not doing that. The only reason why that might be is sometimes a daily maximum. So how much in total the long-term care will pay per day. If it's, much, much lower than the services that are going to be provided, it might not be worth it to do it that way.
Okay.
Even on the client's end, so that they can just get the reimbursement. We have their credit card on file or a bank account. But other than that, we're able to set it up seamlessly for them. And if they don't want to set it up that way, we do a courtesy of sending their care notes, which are required, and also their invoices directly to their long-term care on their behalf. So they don't even have to worry about sending it off, which can be a big burden to a family member.
Absolutely.
So we'll do that as a courtesy for them too.
That's great,
That's
because
great.
you guys are the experts in it, and the families a lot of times are in crisis mode. They kind of don't know where to turn. And
And they don't know what to send to the insurance company. They could be asking for things that they don't have access to. So it's great that you guys can take that off their plate.
Definitely. Yep.
And I just wanted to circle back to the physicians. So when someone does come on Bayada, do they keep their own physician? Do you have physicians that they work with? How does that work with their doctor?
So they can keep their physician. Definitely recommend if they have a primary care physician to keep it. We don't have any physicians on service with us, but having the physician is how you'll need the script in order to obtain the skilled services. But something to think about, and there's like 2 avenues to go down. If they're having difficulty getting out of the home without the support of somebody, maybe having a visiting doctor might be a better option for them, which I know they might have a relationship with their current doctor, but just so they don't have to worry about if there's an emergency issue, if they can't get out of the home, somebody's coming right to them. Or our aides could come into the home and drive them to and from appointments where they're still able to keep that primary care physician.
I'm jumping around, so I'm curious. Is part of what your role is in your job constantly educating facilities, communities, senior centers on kind of the kind of service that you can provide?
I would say yes. I am the director of our office, so I oversee like the overall operations. We are a 7-person team in my office, so all of our roles break down to work together to provide the care to families. And definitely a lot of it is education, getting out into the community, explaining, our services, but home health care services in general, so people know what they have access to. I think I'm not in our hospice office specifically, but there's a lot of misconceptions about hospice and the services that are able to be provided. We do a lot of education on that, even though my office doesn't necessarily provide hospice directly. We have Bayada Hospice that can. But we want our families to know that there are options for them out there, especially it's such a tricky word sometimes. So having that tact with them. So a lot of education for families.
So you segue right into my next question.
Yeah.
What are some misconceptions that you hear about home care?
Trying to think. I think there's, fear sometimes of people having a stranger come to their home. So I always get the question of, do you do background checks? Are there fingerprinting? What is your process like for hiring? Yes. So in order to obtain even a home health aide license, all of our caregivers go through a fingerprinting process to obtain their license. So I always say that to families. I'm like, first step to even having a license, they have to be fingerprinted.
Right.
And we also do a background check as well as like an extra set of safety. We have to do reference checks for them. So I think that sometimes comes up.
And I love that families are asking that, because it's so important when someone is coming into your home that you don't do what's called the gray market, where you're using, we always use the phrase, the church lady down the road, or I know a friend who does this. But, somebody who actually works with a company that background checks and is certified is very different.
And I think an element to that too with long-term care, they're going to be looking for that. Having an agency that has a license, I have to provide our office's license that we apply for every single year. So for long-term care, they're going to say, do you have an office license? And I have to fax that to them for them to know it's not accredited is the word, but an approved agency, licensed agency that's providing the care to them. So that's a great point regarding like private caregiving. There's, parts of that too that could be maybe unsafe in a way. Everyone has their own choice of the services they want, and that's okay.
Well, in addition to being ill, now you are an employer.
Right.
Like instead of letting someone else be the employer.
Exactly, which I think sometimes can be challenging. There can be communication issues. When you have an agency, when we're there to support, we should be that first phone call. We will call the aide. If there's a disagreement, if there's a challenge, service failures do happen. We know that. We've worked through that. But if you have an agency to back you up and support, we will make those calls to that caregiver. We'll work through that so there's no awkward tension in a trying time.
Have you ever had any situations like where someone was using private duty, it didn't work out, and they had to use a service like yours?
Mhm, definitely. Yep. We've had people start services with us, then say, you know what, we got to make a change. We found somebody that's going to help us. And a couple weeks go by and they give us a call back. And I say, I'm so sorry, but I'm grateful that you called us back. We're happy to help you. I think having even an agency that you have trust in, even if you wanted to try out services for a little bit, maybe do a couple of weeks, you're noticing some changes in your family member and you're like, maybe I need to prepare. It's good to have an agency that has the records on file of your family member. I have a couple of as needed clients right now. So they'll call us when they need us. And they do have, I think it's a private support on the weekends. So the daughter will call and she'll say, hey, my caregiver can't come on these days. Can your agency come? We already have her mom's records on file. Our nurse has been out to see her. So it helps allow other options for clients too.
That's great. That keeps the continuity.
Yes, definitely.
If someone is listening today or thinks themselves or a loved one needs your services or might benefit from home care, what's the best way to reach out to Bayada?
So I guess if they wanted to Google, we get a lot of Google like Bayada in our area, and then they can see our local service office and give us a call. And then I would say our Bayada website, there's multiple sections. If you go through, it's literally an inquiry form that gets sent right to my office, depending on where you live, and it will go to the service office that would best support.
So is that bayada.com?
Yes, bayada.com.
Great.
Are families often coming to you guys in crisis mode?
Yes.
What's the first thing that you're trying to tell that family?
We usually like to say, like, we got this, we're going to help you and gather as much information as we can, but also we don't want to overwhelm them in that moment too. So even if that means us calling, if they're in a facility, if they're, somewhere else, a hospital, calling on their behalf, to try to get that information, but just trying to make sure they know that, like, we got this, we're going to figure this out for you. Like, you have a partner in us in the care.
We've all dealt with those family members that have a lot going on. So
Yeah.
how do you guys best try and explain to a family that, they're doing the right thing and that their loved one is going to actually benefit from your services?
I think just being patient with those conversations too. I think even now we have a client that's 24/7 care, and we've realized that we might be progressing towards a hospice conversation, which we just learned one of the family members is open to it, but the other family member is like, absolutely not. This is so upsetting. This is, thinking it's the end when it's not. It's just for supportive resources.
Sure.
So I think picking and choosing the right times to have those conversations and listening, and we do a lot of like emotional intelligence work too, and like guiding through how they're feeling and kind of learning a little bit about the background of the client, their family dynamics, to try to see how we can best support them too. If there's, disagreements between the daughters, if there's a disagreement between the mom and the daughter, how can we jump into that without overstepping? Sometimes we have to be very mindful with that.
And then we always like to hear more personal stories. We always like to kind of end our podcast with a fun graduation story, so to speak, or somewhere where you really saw an impact with one of your clients.
Yeah. So in our private pay realm, oftentimes our services are a long term. So we might be supporting somebody through several phases of life and in aging. But if I had to think of a graduation story, we had a client a couple months ago. She had, I want to say it was a compression fracture in her spine, and she was in rehab. And I took the call from the daughter. She was looking for services at home. The facility was mentioning 24/7 care in order to discharge her. And so we set up the day, the time. We had 24/7 care in place. We checked in. How are things going? A couple weeks go by. They said things were going well, and they decided after a couple weeks of services that they were going to remove the overnight care, and they wanted to see how mom would do overnight. We check in, things are going well. She's, improving. She's kind of regaining that independence, which is what we're always looking for our clients and supporting them through that independence. They decided to cut down days and then eventually cut down our services overall. And all through that, knowing that we were there to kind of ebb and flow with the changes that might happen. If they needed to add overnights again, we're right there to support them. If we wanted to cut back again, we could do that too, just so that the client felt like there's some safety there, but she's also still regaining, where she was before. The family had said, if anything else happens in the future, which we always say, we hope nothing happens in the future, but if it does, you can always give us a call. We'd be happy to help you.
Nice.
That's great. this is a very, very particular industry that we work in. There's a lot of different moving parts, a lot of different services, a lot of different companies. What's your why as to why you got into the industry?
That's a really great question. I love that question. I started as an intern at Bayada in 2019. I had no idea what Bayada was. I didn't know what home health care was. I knew my grandma had an aide, but I did not know the full realm of it. I wake up every morning, honestly, to know that our clients are depending on us, and it's for the clients and their families and our aides. Our aides, without them, we can't do the work that we do. They are the ones going out to the home and caring for our clients and their family members, because sometimes we are emotional support, as we were just kind of mentioning, to family members too. It's not just for our clients. So my why is for them. It's also, I have, unfortunately, a personal family member that was recently diagnosed with dementia. So being able to support my family member through that process from all the knowledge that I have in this industry pushes me too. But it's really for our clients, our employees, and everything in between. So we're very, very lucky to help people and be in their homes. So.
And I think one of the great things about Bayada is you have so many different programs to helping people, from children to aging seniors, from, like you said, the private pay to skilled care, therapy in the home. So there's a whole lot with one phone call or one click on the internet to get information and how to access the resources.
Definitely.
Can you touch on the part about the children part? Because I've actually never heard any home care agency talk about being able to help children. Could you touch on that?
Yes. So we have pediatric nursing services here that are all over the state of New Jersey. So they can be shifts primarily. So like kind of how we have a home health, they go out for a couple of hours. They'll have nursing shifts as well. We also have a program that's called a nurse residency program that's partnering with colleges and universities in the local area to have more nurses be on board with Bayada, like a pipeline to supporting with Bayada, where they will support with our pediatric or adult nursing clients. The ABA therapy and autism therapy services are new. I don't know 100% how they provide that type of support, but I'd happy to get more information. I could definitely share it with you guys.
Oh, fantastic.
That would be great. That's part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, they have to.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. A lot of powerful stuff that you shared with us today.
A lot of great information.
A lot of great information. Again, we'll come back for part 2 and do more. I loved all the information that you had. And one more thing that I wanted to touch on is you talked about your hospice services and how you guys transition your clients to there. Mary and I are big advocates of that too, because I think you touched on it. A lot of times folks get scared of that word hospice and don't understand that it's an added benefit that they can really, really benefit from. So we love that you guys are not only just helping your clients where they are now, but also helping them through whatever process they're in currently.
Yeah, seeing which direction their care is going. I think that's huge. The communication with the team and with the family when you're recognizing.
I think that's something our team does very well. I'm very, very appreciative for everybody that works in my office. We sit in a pit format, which I know you guys came to my office and got to see it a little bit. We are all talking all day long about our clients. And when my nurses go out every month to see them, we're talking about where were they at before? What's happening now? How was your visit? Do you think we need to recommend any type of supportive service to them? Talking with other community resources to see, how we can make that referral if necessary. So we're constantly having those conversations to help guide families through the right direction.
And you almost have to, right? Mary and I are also talking all day about our clients. You have to communicate with the families, communicate with your team.
Right.
Everybody's on the same page. So when the crisis does come up, if one does, everyone's kind of already on board and kind of knows what's happening.
Exactly. So we're all able to support one another, and it's emotional work that we do too. So leading in with one another to support each other through that is really important, having a strong team communication, which I'm very lucky that we have. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you again. We had Hannah Berenberg from Bayada Home Health for joining us today on For Mature Audiences Only.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you found this episode helpful, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone that could benefit.
Just remember, you don't have to navigate aging or caregiving alone.
If today's conversation raised questions about elder law, long-term care, or planning ahead, visit jerseyelderlaw.com or call 609-842-9200 to find resources and support.
This is For Mature Audiences Only, presented by Archer Law Office. Until next time, keep pushing forward and keep the conversation going.